The truth about the home affordability crisis. If you are a millennial or maybe even Gen Z, you may have noticed what we call the generational wealth gap. What I'm going to explain to you here are, as I see them, the three real fundamental reasons young people cannot afford to buy homes. I'm Craig Powell with Powell Realty Advisors, serving Greater Boston and the South Shore. This topic is close to my heart, okay? It won't be my most fun video because, to be honest with you, it's kind of a sad state of affairs. I believe we have created conditions in this country that are strangling the American dream, which is owning a home. So yeah, not fun. As a real estate professional, I'm really seeing a lot of this firsthand. So let's start with some basic facts. Let's start with this. If you want to build the stable middle-class wealth that we associate with the American dream, you have to own assets. It's an asset economy, right? The primary asset for most middle-class people is their home. You can imagine, for someone in my position as a real estate advisor, a lot of my conversations today are about buying versus renting. We want you to buy and get off the treadmill of renting, paying some other guy's mortgage, right? We aggressively want you on the property ladder. Clearly, millennials are struggling with this. I'm sure Gen Z will too. Take a look around you. If you are an asset owner, you are doing pretty good, if not quite well. And if you are simply a wage earner, you're getting jobbed, you're getting priced out. It's a little deceiving. We know millennials are out there competing in the higher end, pretty much the highest end of the housing market. That's true, right? But it is not at all representative of the age group. Despite being the largest generation by population, only 17% of homeowners are millennials today. That's 1 in 6 houses. Among millennials who are planning to buy a home, 63% have absolutely no savings for a down payment. What the older generation may not fully appreciate about millennials is the economic instability they've been up against. We've been up against. Clearly the margins are slimmer and slimmer for younger working people, living paycheck to paycheck, much more than the older crowd. And let's be totally honest, and this is the stuff that kind of pisses me off, right? If you are a blue collar worker trying to buy a home anywhere near the location maybe you grew up in, good luck, right? In 2022, that life is going to be really hard to create for you. This is not about avocado toast and lattes. This is about demographics, okay? So just bear with me. The average age of the first-time home buyer is now 34. That's my age. Millennials are not getting married. They're not having babies. The birth rate in the US is at all-time lows, and every year we set a new record for all-time lows. You wonder if 25 years from now, we might have the wrong type of housing for an entirely different generation of people. Maybe we actually have an oversupply then. Maybe we'll finally figure out supply by then. So I don't know if I would call this a productive exercise to sit here and complain on behalf of my clients who are hardworking buyers and getting screwed when it comes to home ownership, but that's what we are going to do here, right? So that would be a fair criticism to say I'm just sitting here and whining, but here's the deal, right? I am going to give you the 3 fundamental reasons, in my opinion, young people cannot afford to buy homes. Reason number 1 would be debt. Student loan debt and medical debt are the big ones, aside from credit card debt and auto loan debt. I think student loan debt and medical debt, I think they stem from more systemic problems. I did mention that there are millennials competing at the highest end of the housing market. We know that for a fact today. But again, like I said, it's not representative of really, the age group. The bottom 80% of millennials have been overburdened with debt. The cost of college, the cost of healthcare make it very difficult to get ahead. Debt is usually a pretty direct reason a person can't save for a down payment or for retirement. My student loans haunted me for years. I know how that goes. If the goal of going to college is upward mobility, the data suggests it's a losing proposition today. which brings me to our second contributing factor. Reason number 2 would be stagnant wages. This is somehow underreported because you need to look at it in real terms. There is a disconnect between housing prices and income. Now, you would think with the Great Resignation that this is a good time for labor. Wages are going up, literally, but not really, right? So young people have seen their wages flatline, if not decrease, in real terms due to inflation. Wages are not keeping pace with inflation. Home prices are up 17% year over year. Rents, I always talk about rent inflation now. Rents are up 15% year over year. We know your other expenses like gas and food are up. So yeah, wages are up literally, but less so than all these other expenses, which means wages are actually kind of down. By the way, our first 2 reasons, debt and stagnant wages, really together demonstrate a diminishing value proposition for the college education, the bachelor's degree. Gen Z, take note, because this stuff doesn't seem to be getting any better. Haven't figured this out. Reason number 3, young people cannot afford to buy a home, and really the concept that I most wanted to talk to you about, I'm gonna call it Nimbyism, but really that's a catch-all term for artificial constraints on development. Nimbyism, if you haven't heard of it, NIMBY stands for not in my backyard. For the purposes of this video, we are talking about any and all regulations making it harder to increase supply, right? So that's all under one umbrella, red tape, right? So you could say building codes and zoning play into this. To say those are, negative would be an oversimplification, but they are technically like encumbrances, when it comes to increasing supply, right? So really the enemy here is government interference and local pushback on development. It's definitely not that all local pushback is not valid or people's concerns are not valid. That's not what I'm saying. But I do see on local Facebook pages all the time, pushback about these local towns being overbuilt, overdeveloped, and this might very well become a generational battleground because a lot of the time, the people who don't want development, frankly, are older. They want these towns to stay the way they've known their whole lives, and simply put, this economic pressure does not directly affect them. And I think this is unfair to young people in a significant way. The question becomes, why don't you hear about this more? Politicians ignore this, right? Housing and personal finance should be front and center issues. The reason you don't hear about it is because it's a losing issue and it's political suicide to be so pro-development. So it's kind of fascinating. But if you come out and you say, hey guys, good news, I'm gonna lower the price of housing. That sounds good, right, so far? The way I'm gonna do it is by increasing the density in your town and allowing urban sprawl. That probably won't fly. I think it was St. Paul, Minnesota, that got rid of single family zoning, right? So I'm not sure, but that's an idea that is intended to lower the cost of housing. That is going right at the housing affordability crisis. I'm going off on a tangent, but I think this is where, honestly, the next Occupy Wall Street is brewing. It's somewhere in the rising home prices and rents, the lack of development, the lack of housing. This could be the issue of our time. Keep an eye on it. Wrapping up, it's funny. I can't complain personally, but there is a certain sentiment among people my age that we're getting screwed. And then there's another thought, maybe from an older generation, not to generalize too much, right? But there might be this idea of like, hey, you damn millennials are always complaining. You got to do what we did and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? But it's not the same thing. I think it's fair to acknowledge the generational differences. If the question is, for millennials, right? If the question is, are you getting screwed? If you look at the data, The short answer is yes. Millennials might be in command of the job market, working from home and thriving, but they don't have assets. The millennial homeownership rate continues to trail previous generations, and if this supply bottleneck continues, many people of my generation are kind of screwed when it comes to owning property. Anyway, this has been a downer, but thanks for watching. Thanks for your continued support of my business. Let's together help more millennials achieve the dream of home ownership. Don't forget, my business is ultimately helping buyers, sellers, investors, and renters in Boston and on the South Shore. If you've stuck around long enough to hear this, please feel free to refer me to anyone you know. I'd certainly appreciate that. And as always, contact me if I can help answer your real estate questions directly. Thank you for your time and have a great day.